Hello, my name is Gustavo Tibana, and I'm going to recommend that you read an excellent graphic novel. It's Watchmen, and I'm going to tell you about the author's biography, the topics covered in the novel, the symbolisms, the historical and literary context, some keywords, the characters, and finally a small conclusion. Watchmen is a graphic novel created by English writer Alan Moore, artist Dave Gibbons, and colorist John Higgins, published in 1987. Alan Moore, born in Northampton in November 18, 1953, is a British writer and comic writer. Some of his work have been very prominent and critically recognized and popularly acclaimed, such as Watchmen, V for Vendetta, From Hell, among others. Moore first worked for the market in his country in magazines like 2080 or Warrior. From 1984, he worked in U.S. market, mainly for DC Comics. Since the mid 1980s, he has been working mostly at independent publisher in both sides of the Atlantic. But politically, he declares himself an anarchist, an ideology that he reflects in some of his works. September 9, 2016, Moore announced that he was retired from the comic book industry. Moore's work is recognized for inventing or developing numerous narrative sources that have contributed to expanding expressive possibilities, such as forces ellipses, simultaneity and parallelisms of text and images, intercontextualization of foreign elements in principle to the history he's telling. Watchmen creates an alternative version of the American 20th century, with costumed heroes proclaiming themselves with the authority to deliver justice. Watchmen history faced the growing threat of the World War III, an independent nuclear apocalypse caused by tension between America and Russia, or the Soviet Union, favoring the evolution and creation of new military technologies. Okay, in this graphic novel, there are many characters, but I want to highlight four. The first is Walter Kovacs, Roger. Walter Kovacs is a watchman in disguise and one of the main characters in the story. Rogers wear a white mask with changing black shapes, with resemble Roger's transfer test. Roger is far-right, homophobic, nationalistic, traumatized by his childhood, who has completely lost his mind. He believes that he is always right and take radical measures for anything. Just go in black and white, just exist good and bad. And transition is created where Kovacs is the disguise and Roger is the real one. It implies the bad men can do good things and the good men can do very bad things. The other character is Adrian Bate, or Ozymandias. Ozymandias is a brilliant businessman, operates as a watchman hero Ozymandias for several years before announcing his retirement, and publicly revealed his identity as John Bandit idolizes Alexander the Great, but regrets the fact that he never achieved his ultimate goal of unifying all of the humanity. Adrian believes that he is a kind of mother far off, and seeing that the world is about to go to war, and create a plan to achieve peace by sacrificing a few for the benefit of the other. The other character is Edward Blake, the comedian. Is a masked Watchman and member of the original Minutemen, who later works for the U.S. government as a paramilitary operative. He is has a stereotype of a man, American man in cinema. He is immoral and violent. The other character is John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan. John is a superhuman, the only person in Watchmen who possesses a real superpower. John is a Harvard scientist who accidentally looks himself in a radiation test chamber. He dies and is reborn as Dr. Manhattan, being who has complete mastery of the laws of physics and matter, and can look back and forward through the time, and you can teleport yourself and the other people at will, effectively making you a divine figure. The story begins with Roger investigating the death of the Edward Blake, the comedian, and theorize plot against the other masked man. With his hypothesis, he contacts other heroes to warn them and visit Nightwall, Silk Spectre, Dr. Manhattan, and Ozymandias, but no one takes him seriously. After the funeral of the comedian, by means of memorized teach us he was. After, Dr. Manhattan is accused of causing cancer to some people and decides to go to Mars so as not to harm anyone when the Soviet takes advantage to invade new territories. Roger is in his investigation falls into a trap. He's accused by the police of killing two Moloch, is a village, retired village, and he is prisoner. There, he reveals his psychiatric disorder and how he grew up with an abusive mother. Then Vegan Nightwall decide to free Rorschach, and they do it with the help of Laurie. But the police suspect them, and when they go to Dan's house, Dr. Manhattan appears in the room and takes Laurie to Mars, where it is explained that they do not. He feels nothing toward a human race, and Laurie convinces him to save the humanity. Nightwall and Roger discover that it has all been an Ozymandias plan that has long believed that the government and Earth will eventually destroy each other, and the process. In the process, eliminating humanity forever. And he designed a plan so that simulating an alien attack the world will unite and declare peace. Everything is sacrifice a few for the good of many. Nightwall and Roger decide to stop him, but Ozymandias has already executed the plan. Dr. Manhattan and Laurie arrive in New York City and find corpses everywhere. and reminds of the alien. Dr. Manhattan teleports to the Ozymandian base in Atlantic. Dr. Manhattan overcomes Ozymandians, and then when he's about to kill, here the plan is worked and declared peace. So Dr. Manhattan decides not to kill him and keep quiet about what happened. Rorschach is not accordant with the acts of the Ozymandians and decides to reveal everything. And in the end, Dr. Manhattan kills Rorschach, who decides to take his death as a callback. The Ozymandians' plan was successful, and Dr. Manhattan disappeared to start a new life in other planet. No clutch, Rorschach left a diary with a great detail of what happened and sent to a newspaper. In the last scene, the editor is about to read it, and we don't know if the truth will be exposed or not. Now I'm going to talk about the symbols. I think that is three important symbols in the graphic novel. The first is the smiley face. This badge is a direct criticism of traditional comics. Although they try to make reference to social issues, are still childish and silly. Watchmen gives us a representation of the heroes and ultra-realistic society. The other symbol is clocks. The clocks have a great symbology in his work. Not only the perception of the order and perfection that Dr. Manhattan has of the universe, but also a concrete allusion to real-life events such as the Hiroshima attack or the Doomsday Clock that we see in the cover on the graphic novel. The other is the Rorschach mask that symbolizes the two people that is Walter Kovacs and who he thinks that there are not good and bad people. His moral vision of the world changing plot represents his change of morality compared to things that he himself does. And a clear example of this is that they think he is a good person even though he does really bad things. And also Roger calls his Mac his face and comment that the only feels like himself when wearing it. Watchmen is a great work, but it is also a great criticism the government. It's a novel graphical adult who propose a deconstruction when the comics try to touch on uses social, but still can get a room for be silly. Moore chooses to transform the world of Watchmen, one partial humbug, something mundane, something more real. This is the way of saying that the parameters of law are going to be broken, and Watchmen is not about superheroes, but rather show how childish they are, and addition to putting us in the time when the worst things are only minutes away from happening. The writer creates a work that deals the gized psychopath taking used by his hand. For example, Captain Metropolis is the image that the author wants to express of superhero because he is a failed man who believes himself better than the others and wear costumes. All the protagonists have very serious trauma or psychological problem that prevent them from acting appropriately, and were designed in this way to give scary and painful. It creates an excellent presentation of real events. An example of this is when the comedian is at the pub and he's wounded by the girl. She represents Vietnam. The wound he does to the comedian symbolizes the defeat of the United States. The shot is the representation of the misery that was left in his country after the conflict. Dr. Manhattan as a good see all the atrocity of the humanity, but doesn't nothing. Like this, there are many other references and criticisms of the government, society, and how the world by nature is grotesque. But the message is not only about the bad things. If we analyze the work well, it implies that we can love the dead. It is about give and encouraging messages of living, loving, and helping others without believing yourself superior. Even begins a normal man, you can go out and help. And mutual love is the important thing. An example of this is that the only ones who survive are those who love each other. The comedian or Roger died. Although in the end the author show us in the last part of Roger diary, and the editor about to read it, thus start the story again, creating a narrative loop narrative, with a masterful reference such as the poster at the beginning of the work that says the end is near. With this leaving the question whether the truth was discovered or not. To end, Watchmen is not a comic like any other, and is designed for you to read and reread, to be able to understand all the wings, all the symbolisms, all the representation, and the message it has for us.